My heart pounded against my chest as I parked across the street from Harper's house. The perfectly manicured lawn was decorated with pink balloons and a welcome baby girl sign swayed gently in the breeze. I sat in my car, clutching the envelope that had taken me weeks to prepare, wondering if coming here was a mistake. It had been 2 years since I'd last seen my daughter. 2 years of missed birthdays, holidays, and ordinary Sundays that used to be our sacred time together. Now I was about to walk into her baby shower. An uninvited mother, a stranger to most of her new friends, a footnote in her life. I checked my appearance in the rearview mirror. At 60, the lines around my eyes had deepened, and my once auburn hair was now mostly silver. I'd spent extra time getting ready today, as if looking my best could somehow bridge the gulf between us. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the gift bag containing the envelope and stepped out of the car. Each step toward the house felt heavier than the last. Through the large bay window, I could see a room full of women laughing and chatting. Harper sat in a decorated chair, her hand resting on her swollen belly, smiling at something her mother-in-law was saying. She looked beautiful, her pregnancy giving her skin a radiant glow. Before I could knock, the door swung open, and I found myself face to face with Amanda, Harper's childhood friend. Nicole. Her surprise was genuine. "I didn't know you were coming." Her exclamation drew attention, and the room fell silent as heads turned toward me. Harper's smile vanished, replaced by a look of shock. "She came? I thought she'd just send a gift," Harper said to someone beside her, not bothering to lower her voice. The word stung like a physical blow. I stood frozen in the doorway, clutching my purse and the gift bag, feeling like an intruder. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave, but I'd promised myself I would do this. "Hello everyone," I managed, forcing a smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Harper's mother-in-law, a woman I'd only met once at the wedding, approached with a practiced smile. "Of course not. Please come in." The women returned to their conversations, but the atmosphere had changed. I could feel their curious glances as I made my way across the room to Harper. She didn't stand to greet me. No hug, not even a handshake. Just a cool nod as I approached. "Mom, I didn't think you'd come. I wouldn't miss my grandchild's celebration," I said softly. Eric, Harper's husband, emerged from the kitchen. His eyes narrowed slightly when he saw me, but he quickly masked it with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Nicole. What a surprise." There was that word again. Surprise. As if a mother wanting to be part of her daughter's life was something unexpected, something odd. "I brought something for the baby," I said, placing the gift bag on the table with the other presents. "You can open it now if you'd like," I added, hoping she would. Hoping we could have this moment. Harper hesitated, then reached for the bag. The room quieted again as everyone watched. She pulled out the envelope, her brow furrowing. "Just a card," someone whispered, loud enough for me to hear. Harper opened the envelope, and as she read what was inside, her eyes filled with tears. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Mom," her voice broke. I had spent weeks deciding what to put in that envelope. Not money, Eric would have seen that as charity. Not advice, Harper had made it clear my opinions weren't welcome. Instead, I had included something I hoped would remind her of what we once had. Before Eric. Before the estrangement. Before she had decided that my concerns about her husband were unforgivable betrayals. The women were watching us, misinterpreting Harper's tears as joy, smiling at what they thought was a touching mother-daughter moment. If only they knew the truth. If only they knew what had happened 3 years ago, when Harper had asked me to sell my home, the house her father and I had built together, so she and Eric could invest in his latest business venture. If only they knew how Eric had called me selfish and controlling when I'd refused. If only they knew how Harper had stood silently beside him, choosing his dreams over our bond. Harper wiped her tears and tucked the envelope away without showing its contents to anyone. "Thank you," she said formally, as if addressing a distant acquaintance. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I just wanted you to have it." For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, a hint of the daughter I'd raised, the one who used to run to me with her triumphs and troubles, the one who'd sworn nothing would ever come between us. Then Eric placed his hand on her shoulder, and her expression hardened again. "You should get some food," she said, gesturing toward the buffet table. before it's all gone. And just like that, I was dismissed, relegated to the fringes of her celebration, of her life. As I turned away, I caught Eric whispering something in her ear. Whatever he said, it made her look at me with renewed coldness. That night after the baby shower, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by the memories Robert and I had built over 30 years of marriage. The grandfather clock in the corner, a wedding gift from his parents, ticked steadily, marking time in a house that had grown too quiet. I ran my fingers over the arm of Robert's favorite chair, picturing him there with his evening newspaper, glasses perched on the end of his nose. "What would you have done, Robert?" I whispered to the empty room. "Would you have sold our home for Harper?" I knew the answer. 2 days before the heart attack that took him from us, we'd sat on the porch swing talking about our future. "Nicole," he'd said, squeezing my hand, "promise me you'll always keep this place. No matter what happens, this house is Harper's legacy, her safety net." I'd kept that promise for 12 years. Then Eric came along. I still remember the day Harper brought him home. My girl was smitten, her eyes lighting up whenever he spoke. He was charming, ambitious, and had grand plans for their future. I wanted to be happy for her, truly I did. But there was something about Eric that set off warning bells in my mind. "He reminds me of my brother Tim," I confided to my best friend Elaine over coffee. "Always chasing get-rich-quick schemes, never sticking with anything long enough to see it through." Harper and Eric's wedding was lavish, far more expensive than they could afford. When I gently suggested something simpler, Harper accused me of trying to dampen her joy. "Why can't you just be happy for me, Mom?" she demanded. "Dad would have been." I let it go, writing them a check that drained my savings account, telling myself it was worth it to see my only child happy. The problem started 6 months later. Eric's consulting business wasn't taking off as planned. They'd bought a house they couldn't afford, furnishing it with high-end items on credit. When Harper called asking to borrow money, I didn't hesitate, though I made her promise not to tell Eric. "It would hurt his pride," she said. I should have recognized the pattern, but I was too focused on being there for my daughter. The loans became regular, first monthly, then weekly. Each time Harper swore it was temporary, that Eric's business was about to turn a corner. Each time I withdrew more from my retirement fund, telling myself it was what Robert would have wanted. Then came the day that changed everything. Harper and Eric appeared on my doorstep unannounced, with printed brochures and a business plan. "It's foolproof, Nicole," Eric explained, spreading papers across my dining table. "A franchise opportunity. We just need capital to secure the territory rights." I listened carefully as he detailed the investment, trying to ignore the red flags popping up in my mind. The numbers didn't add up. The projected returns were wildly optimistic. When I asked about the franchise's track record, Eric became defensive. "You don't trust me," he accused, his charm evaporating. "You've never thought I was good enough for Harper." "That's not true," I protested. "I'm just asking questions any investor would ask." Harper jumped in, her eyes pleading. "Mom, this is our chance. We need $200,000 for the franchise fee. If you sell this house, you could give us the money and still have plenty left to buy a smaller place." I stared at my daughter, stunned. "Sell the house? Harper, your father and I built this place. It's where you grew up." "It's just a house, Mom," Harper said dismissively. "This is our future we're talking about." "I made a promise to your father," I said quietly. "This house stays in the family." Eric scoffed. "Robert's been gone for over a decade. He'd want Harper to be happy, wouldn't he?" The conversation deteriorated from there. Eric accused me of controlling Harper through my money. Harper cried that I didn't believe in them. When they left, Harper's parting words cut deep. "Dad would have helped us. He always put family first." What Harper didn't know, what I'd protected her from knowing, was how her father had once nearly lost everything chasing a similar opportunity. Robert had recovered, had rebuilt our financial security through years of hard work. His last wish was for this house to be Harper's safety net, not collateral for Eric's ambitions. A week later, I received a formal letter from Harper, stating that she and Eric wanted to distance themselves from my toxic influence. The words blurred through my tears as I read how my financial manipulation and lack of support had damaged her marriage. The letter ended with a request that I respect their decision to limit contact. I tried calling, texting, even driving to their house, but Harper refused to see me. Eric answered the door the last time I visited, informing me coldly that Harper didn't want to speak to me and threatening to call the police if I continued harassing them. Months passed. Through mutual friends, I learned that Eric's franchise deal had fallen through. I wanted to reach out to offer help without judgment, but the wall between us seemed impenetrable. Then I made a decision. I sold my mother's antique jewelry collection, pieces I'd planned to give Harper on her 30th birthday, and anonymously paid off the most pressing of their debts through their bank. They would never know it was me, but at least I could sleep knowing their utilities wouldn't be cut off, that my grandchild wouldn't be born into a home burdened by collection notices. As I sat in my quiet house that night after the baby shower, I thought about what I'd written in the envelope. Not a check, though I'd been tempted. Not accusations or justifications. Just a simple truth. The house will always be here for you and the baby, whenever you need it. No questions asked. All my love, Mom. I hoped someday she'd understand that my refusal hadn't been about the money. It had been about keeping a promise, about protecting the legacy her father wanted for her. A safety net for when life's storms hit. And judging by the rumors I'd heard about Eric's mounting gambling debts, those storms were gathering on the horizon. The seasons changed, but the silence between Harper and me remained constant. I marked the passing months by holidays spent alone, by birthdays acknowledged only through cards that likely went unopened, by the gradual transformation of my granddaughter from a sonogram image into a real person I wasn't allowed to know. 6 months after the baby shower, I stood in line at Morgan's pharmacy when I overheard Mrs. Campbell, my former neighbor, talking to the pharmacist. "Such a shame about the Reynoldses," she said, lowering her voice but not enough. "That business of his went under, you know. My daughter says they're struggling to make mortgage payments." My heart clenched. The Reynoldses, Harper and Eric. My own daughter was in financial trouble, and I had to learn about it from town gossip. "The baby is just precious though," Mrs. Campbell continued. "Little Emma. Looks just like Harper did as an infant." Emma. My granddaughter had a name. Emma. I repeated it silently, committing it to memory, imagining a tiny face that combined Harper's determined chin with Robert's gentle eyes. I abandoned my place in line and hurried out of the store before Mrs. Campbell could spot me. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring at my phone. I should call her, I thought. Offer help. But I knew what would happen. Eric would intercept the call, interpret any assistance as an insult to his ability to provide for his family. Instead, I did the only thing I could. I wrote a check to their mortgage company and mailed it anonymously, just as I'd done before. It wasn't much, just enough to give them a month's breathing room. I wondered how long I could keep this up before my own resources ran dry. My life had narrowed in the years since Harper's estrangement. I rarely socialized, turning down invitations from friends who inevitably asked about Harper and the baby. I couldn't bear their pitying looks when I admitted I hadn't met my own granddaughter. But I couldn't continue drifting in this limbo of grief and isolation. Robert wouldn't have wanted that. "Promise me you'll live a full life," he'd said in those final days. "Even when I'm gone. Especially when I'm gone." It was time to honor that promise too. The Lakeview Women's Shelter sat on the outskirts of town, a former motel converted into a safe haven for women fleeing domestic violence. I'd read about their need for volunteers in the local paper. "You're sure you want to commit to 3 days a week?" Marianne, the volunteer coordinator, asked during my interview. "It can be emotionally draining work." "I'm sure," I replied. "I have experience with controlling relationships. Not my marriage to Robert. We'd had our disagreements, but our relationship had been built on mutual respect. No, I was thinking of my first boyfriend, Dean, who had gradually isolated me from friends and family, whose jealousy had escalated to violence. I was remembering how my mother had offered refuge when I finally found the courage to leave, how she never once said, "I told you so," though she'd warned me about him from the start. Perhaps that was why Eric bothered me so much. Something in his possessive gestures toward Harper, in his eagerness to cut her off from me, echoed memories I'd spent decades trying to forget. At the shelter, I found purpose. I helped women navigate the complexities of restraining orders and custody arrangements. I sat with them while they cried, while they raged, while they doubted their decisions. I witnessed both heartbreak and healing, reminded daily of how thin the line between security and disaster could be. And slowly my own heart began to heal too. Not completely, the Harper-shaped hole remained, but enough that I could speak her name without my voice breaking, enough that I could pass the children's clothing section without stopping to touch the tiny dresses and imagine Emma wearing them. One evening, I was helping a young mother named Jessica prepare dinner for her 2 children at the shelter. As she chopped vegetables, she told me about leaving her husband after years of psychological abuse and financial control. The worst part, she said, was how he convinced me my mother was trying to control me. He'd say things like, "She just can't let you be an adult," or "She thinks I'm not good enough for you." After a while, I stopped talking to her completely. I nearly cut my finger, the parallel to Harper's situation so striking. "What changed?" I asked carefully, setting down my knife. Jessica smiled sadly. "He cleaned out our bank account to pay gambling debts. Left me and the kids with nothing. My mom took us in, no questions asked. I was so ashamed I'd chosen him over her. I thought about Eric's business failures, about the rumors of mounting debts. I wondered if gambling was his secret too, if Harper was discovering the extent of his deception bit by bit, too proud or too afraid to reach out. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman," I said. "She is." Jessica paused. "Do you have children, Nicole?" "A daughter," I replied, my voice steady. "We're not in touch right now." Jessica nodded, understanding in her eyes. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to see who's really there for you. That night, I added Jessica's story to my growing collection of shelter testimonials. Women who had left, returned, left again, finally broken free. Women whose mothers had been their salvation, and women whose mothers had enabled their abusers. I wondered which kind of mother I was. The one who stood firm on principles, or the one who failed to protect her child when it mattered most. The answer came 3 weeks later at 2:17 a.m., when my phone rang, jolting me from sleep. "Nicole." The voice was unfamiliar. "Hushed. Don't hang up. It's about Harper." I sat up, fully awake now, my heart racing. "Who is this?" A pause. "Someone who cares about her. She needs help, but she's too stubborn to ask." "He's gotten worse." "Worse how?" I demanded, already reaching for my robe, my car keys. "The gambling. The debts. He's not the man she thought she married. She's afraid, Nicole. For herself and for Emma." I barely slept after that mysterious call. As dawn broke, I sat at my kitchen table, clutching a cold cup of coffee, debating what to do. The caller hadn't identified herself, but I had my suspicions. Melissa, Harper's college roommate, still lived in town and occasionally sent me discreet updates about my daughter. Harper wouldn't welcome my interference. That much was certain. 3 years of silence had made her position clear. But if she was in danger, if Emma was in danger, how could I stay away? I spent the morning making careful preparations. First, I called Marianne at the shelter. "I might need a room," I explained. "Not for me. For my daughter and her baby." Marianne didn't ask questions. "We have space. Just call when you know." Next, I contacted my lawyer, inquiring about emergency custody procedures just in case. Finally, I withdrew $5,000 in cash, enough to help Harper start over if she chose to leave Eric. By noon, I was parked across from Harper's house, a modest colonial with peeling paint and an overgrown lawn, so different from the immaculate home I'd visited for the baby shower. Signs of financial strain were evident. A past due notice taped to the door, visible even from my car, and Eric's prized BMW conspicuously absent from the driveway. I was about to approach the house when Eric's car turned onto the street. I ducked down, heart racing as he parked and slammed the door. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the agitation in his movements as he stormed into the house. Through the open windows, I heard their voices escalate. Not clear enough to make out words, but the tone was unmistakable. An argument. Then a sound that froze my blood. Something crashed against a wall, followed by Harper's muffled cry. I was out of my car in an instant, running across the street, all caution abandoned. The front door was unlocked, and I burst into the living room to find Harper backed against the fireplace, a broken vase at her feet, Eric looming over her. "Get away from her." I shouted. Both turned to me, shock momentarily replacing anger on their faces. Mom! Harper's voice was small, her cheek reddened where I was certain Eric's hand had struck. What the hell are you doing here? Eric snarled, stepping toward me. This is private property. You're trespassing. I'm leaving, I said calmly, looking past him to Harper. And Harper and Emma are coming with me. Eric laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. She's not going anywhere. Tell her, Harper. Tell your mother to mind her own business. Harper hesitated, her eyes darting between us. In that moment of indecision, I saw how trapped she felt, how terrified. Harper, I said gently, whatever he's done, whatever's happened, you don't have to stay. You never have to stay with someone who hurts you. She's fine, Eric snapped. We had a disagreement, that's all. Right, Harper? Harper remained silent, her gaze now fixed on the floor. Show her, I said quietly. Show me what? Eric demanded. I kept my eyes on Harper. The debts. The gambling receipts. Whatever you found that started this argument. Harper's head snapped up, surprise evident in her tear-stained face. How did you? Oh, this is rich, Eric interrupted, stepping between us. You've been spying on us? Having me followed? I didn't need to, I replied evenly. I've seen this story before. The failed businesses. The constant need for more money. The isolation of your wife from anyone who might question you. Eric's face darkened. Get out of my house. Now. Harper, I said, extending my hand. Please come with me. You and Emma both. Harper looked at my outstretched hand. Then at Eric, conflict written across her face. I recognized that look, the same one I'd worn decades ago with Dean, weighing the terrifying prospect of leaving against the known misery of staying. If you leave with her, Eric said, his voice dangerously quiet, don't bother coming back. And you can forget about seeing Emma again. Harper paled. You wouldn't. Try me, he challenged. My parents have excellent lawyers. Who do you think a judge would favor? Me with my family's resources and connections, or you, an unemployed mother with no income? I saw the fight drain from Harper's eyes, replaced by resignation. She'd been here before, I realized. This wasn't their first confrontation, merely the first I'd witnessed. Harper, I said, refusing to lower my hand. He's bluffing. No judge would deny a mother custody without serious cause. I have resources too. I have people who can help. Please. Something shifted in Harper's expression, a flicker of the determined young woman I'd raised. Emma's upstairs, she said, her voice barely audible. I need to get her things. Eric grabbed her arm. You're not taking my daughter anywhere. I stepped forward, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. Let her go, Eric. Right now. Or I call the police and show them the bruise forming on her face. His grip loosened. Harper pulled away and hurried upstairs. Eric turned to me, hatred burning in his eyes. You've wanted this from the beginning, he hissed. You never thought I was good enough for her. This isn't about you or me, I replied. It's about Harper and Emma being safe. He sneered. Safe? You have no idea what you're talking about. I've given them everything. Except security, I countered. Except honesty. Tell me, Eric, does Harper know about the second mortgage you took out? About the credit cards maxed out in her name? His expression confirmed my suspicions. Melissa had told me more than just about the argument. She'd mentioned offhand comments from Harper about mysterious bills, about Eric's increasing secretiveness regarding their finances. You've been interfering in our marriage for years, he accused. Poisoning her against me. I haven't spoken to my daughter in 3 years, I reminded him. You made certain of that. Before he could respond, Harper appeared at the bottom of the stairs, Emma bundled in her arms, a diaper bag slung over her shoulder. I'm ready, she said quietly. Eric moved to block the door. Harper, think about what you're doing. Where will you go? How will you support yourself and Emma? Your mother is manipulating you. Just like she always has. I saw Harper waver, doubt clouding her eyes. I have the house, I said. You'll have your own space, your own privacy. No pressure, no expectations. Just safety for you and Emma. Until when? Eric demanded. Until she decides you need to follow her rules? Pay rent? Get a job she approves of. Until you're ready to stand on your own. Harper looked down at Emma's sleeping face, then back at Eric. I found the letters from the bank, she said, her voice gaining strength. The gambling receipts. The loan applications with my forged signature. Eric's face reddened. I was going to fix it. One big win and it would all be. Stop, Harper interrupted. Just stop. I'm leaving Eric. Not forever maybe, but for now. Emma and I need some space while you sort yourself out. If you walk out that door, he began. You'll what? I challenged, stepping between them. Hit her again? In front of your daughter? In front of a witness? The threat hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Eric's fists clenched at his sides, but he didn't move. We're leaving now, I said firmly, guiding Harper toward the door. You can contact her through me when you're ready to discuss this civilly. We stepped out into the sunlight, Harper clutching Emma close to her chest. I held my breath, half expecting Eric to follow, to make a scene in the front yard. But the door remained closed behind us. It wasn't until we were both in my car, Emma secured in the back seat in a hastily installed car seat, that Harper finally broke down, sobs racking her body as 3 years of pretense crumbled away. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered between gasps. You tried to warn me. I didn't listen. I chose him over you and he. Shua, I soothed, reaching over to squeeze her hand. You're not the first woman to be deceived by a man like Eric. You won't be the last. She looked at me, her face tear-streaked but determined. Where do we go from here? I expected Eric to come after us immediately. Every time headlights appeared in my rearview mirror during the drive home, my grip tightened on the steering wheel. But we made it to my house without incident, Harper silent beside me except for occasional whispered reassurances to Emma when the baby stirred. We'll take the guest room upstairs, I said as I unlocked the front door. I've kept it ready. I didn't add that I'd maintained it for this exact scenario, hoping someday Harper would return, even under circumstances I dreaded. Harper nodded, following me inside with Emma cradled against her chest. She paused in the entryway, her eyes scanning the familiar surroundings, the same photographs on the walls, the same worn sofa where we'd once spent evenings watching movies together, the same scent of cinnamon that had always filled our home. Nothing's changed, she whispered. Some things have, I replied gently, but the important ones remain. I showed her to the guest room, where I'd already set up a portable crib, purchased months ago in a moment of desperate optimism. Harper laid Emma down, the baby sighing contentedly in her sleep, unaware of the turmoil surrounding her tiny life. You should rest, I suggested. We can talk in the morning. Harper shook her head, her fingers lightly touching the reddening mark on her cheek. I don't think I can sleep yet. We moved downstairs to the kitchen, where I prepared chamomile tea, our old remedy for sleepless nights and troubled hearts. Harper sat at the table, seemingly lost in thought, her fingers tracing the familiar wood grain patterns. How did you know? She finally asked, breaking the silence. About Eric. About the gambling. You couldn't have just guessed. I set a steaming mug in front of her. Melissa called me. Harper's eyes widened. Melissa? But how did she? She stopped by your house yesterday to drop off a baby gift. Said Eric was agitated, checking his phone constantly. She overheard him arguing with someone about payment deadlines. She never mentioned seeing him, Harper murmured. She was worried about you, I said, sitting across from her. She knew we weren't speaking, but she felt I should know. Harper's hands trembled slightly as she lifted her mug. I found everything just this morning. Credit card statements hidden in his desk drawer. Loan applications with my signature forged, obviously. Receipts from online gambling sites. She took a shaky breath. We're drowning in debt, Mom. The house is underwater. The car's about to be repossessed. And Emma's medical bills from last month's ear infection. Her voice broke. I reached across the table, covering her hand with mine. Harper, whatever you need. I don't want your money, she interrupted, then immediately softened. I mean, I didn't leave him just to become dependent on you instead. This isn't about dependency, I said carefully. It's about family helping family through crisis. Exactly what you asked of me 3 years ago. Harper winced, dropping her gaze. That was different. I thought it was a legitimate business opportunity. Because Eric convinced you it was, I pointed out. Just like he convinced you I was trying to control you. She didn't respond immediately, swirling the tea in her mug. When did you first suspect? She finally asked. About Eric's gambling, I mean. I considered my answer carefully. I didn't know about the gambling specifically, but I recognized patterns in his behavior. The grandiose business plans. The urgency for large investments. The constant need for more funds without clear accounting of previous ones. I paused. They were the same patterns your father saw in his brother, who lost everything to gambling addiction. Harper looked up sharply. Uncle Tom? Dad's brother who moved away before I was born? That was why. I nodded. Your father never told you the full story. Tom's addiction tore the family apart. When your dad refused to keep funding Tom's debts, Tom disappeared. It's why your father was so careful with our finances, why he made me promise to protect this house for you. Understanding dawned in Harper's eyes. That's why you wouldn't sell when we asked. It wasn't about controlling me or disliking Eric. I was trying to honor your father's wishes, I said softly, to maintain this place as your safety net. As it turns out, he was right to insist on it. Harper's shoulders slumped. I said terrible things to you. Accused you of trying to sabotage my marriage. Eric said those things, I corrected. You just believed him. Because I wanted to, she admitted, tears forming. Because admitting you were right meant admitting I'd made a terrible mistake. It was easier to blame you than face the truth. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 3 lost years settling between us. The night you came for the baby shower, Harper finally said. What was in the envelope? Eric took it before I could read it completely. My heart tightened. A letter. Telling you that this house would always be here for you and Emma. No questions asked. And the deed to the property, with your name added alongside mine. Harper's hand flew to her mouth. You put my name on the deed? Even after everything. You're my daughter, I said simply. That never changed. Before she could respond, headlights swept across the kitchen window. A car door slammed outside, followed by angry footsteps on the porch, and then pounding on the front door. Harper! Eric's voice bellowed. I know you're in there. Come out now. Harper froze, panic flashing across her face. How did he find us so quickly? Stay here, I instructed, rising from my chair. Lock the kitchen door behind me. Mom, no, Harper protested. I've dealt with men like Eric before, I assured her. Call the police if you hear anything concerning. The pounding continued as I approached the front door, steeling myself for the confrontation. When I opened it, Eric nearly fell forward, his fist raised to knock again. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothing disheveled. The smell of alcohol wafted from him. Where is she? He demanded, attempting to look past me into the house. It's nearly midnight, Eric, I said calmly. This isn't the time for a conversation. I'm not here to talk to you, he sneered. I'm here for my wife and daughter. Harper, he shouted over my shoulder. Stop hiding behind your mother and face me. Harper doesn't want to see you right now, I stated firmly. Go home. Sober up. We can discuss arrangements tomorrow. He tried to push past me, but I held my ground, surprising both of us with my strength. You're not coming in. Not like this. You can't keep them from me, he hissed. They're my family, not yours. If that were true, I replied evenly, you would respect Harper's need for space instead of showing up drunk at midnight, pounding on my door. His face contorted with rage. You've always hated me. Always thought I wasn't good enough for your precious daughter. Well, guess what? I'm still her husband. I have rights. Yes, you do, I agreed, my voice steady. But right now your wife and child need safety and peace. Go home, Eric. Come back tomorrow when you're sober. Or don't come back at all. That's Harper's decision to make, not mine. For a moment I thought he might strike me. His hands clenched into fists, his body tensing. But then from behind me I heard Harper's voice. Leave, Eric. Please. We'll talk tomorrow, but not like this. Eric's gaze shifted, his expression softening in that manipulative way I'd seen before. Harper, baby, I'm sorry. I was just worried about you and Emma. Let me see her, please. Let me explain. I felt Harper step closer, her presence steady behind me. No, not tonight. Go home. Something in her tone, a newfound resolve, seemed to reach him. He stared at her for a long moment, then stepped back. This isn't over, he warned, pointing at me. Not by a long shot. As he stumbled back to his car, I closed and locked the door, turning to find Harper watching me with a mixture of fear and amazement. How did you stay so calm? She asked. I took a deep breath. Practice. Working at the shelter, I faced down a lot of angry men. Harper's brow furrowed. Shelter? What shelter? The next morning I awoke to unfamiliar sounds, the soft coo of a baby, the gentle whisper of my daughter's voice. For a moment I lay still, afraid to move, as if any sudden motion might shatter this fragile new reality. Downstairs I found Harper at the kitchen table, feeding Emma a bottle. The bruise on her cheek had darkened overnight, a stark reminder of what she'd left behind. But there was something else in her face too, a clarity I hadn't seen in years. Good morning, I said softly, not wanting to startle them. Did you sleep at all? Harper offered a small smile. A little. Emma woke up twice, but that's actually better than usual. I approached cautiously, still uncertain of the boundaries between us. May I? I gestured toward the baby. Harper nodded, and I took my first real look at my granddaughter. Emma had Harper's delicate features, paired with a shock of dark hair that reminded me of Robert. Her tiny hand wrapped around my finger when I stroked her cheek, and something inside me clicked into place. A piece of my heart I hadn't known was missing. She's perfect, I whispered. Mom, Harper said hesitantly. About yesterday. About the last 3 years. We don't have to talk about that now, I interrupted. There's time. No, Harper insisted. I need to say this. She took a deep breath. I'm sorry. For believing Eric over you. For cutting you out of our lives. For everything. I sat down beside her, careful not to disturb Emma. I understand why you did it, Harper. I've seen it happen to other women. Smart, strong women who got caught in the web of someone manipulative. You mentioned a shelter last night, Harper said. What did you mean? Over the next hour, as Emma drifted off to sleep in my arms, I told Harper about my volunteer work at Lakeview, about the women I'd come to know, about how helping them had helped me cope with her absence. All this time, Harper said, I thought you were sitting here alone, bitter and angry with me. But you were out there, helping other women escape the same situation I was in. Not exactly the same, I clarified. Every relationship is different. But yes, in some ways, working at the shelter helped me understand what might be happening in your marriage. Harper's phone buzzed on the table. Eric's name flashed on the screen. She stared at it, her expression hardening. I need to deal with this, she said. But I don't know how. You don't have to face him alone, I assured her. Actually, Harper said, surprising me, I think I do. Not today, but soon. This is my marriage, my mistake to fix. It wasn't a mistake to trust someone you loved, I said gently. The mistake was his betraying that trust. Harper's eyes filled with tears. How do I start over, Mom? I'm 33 with a baby, no job, mountains of debt, and a failed marriage. One day at a time, I replied. And you're not starting from zero. You have this house, you have me, and most importantly, you have yourself, the same smart, determined woman you've always been. For the first time since she'd arrived, Harper smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. I've missed your pep talks. The next weeks fell into a rhythm neither of us could have predicted. Harper contacted a lawyer, who helped her file for legal separation and a temporary restraining order after Eric's drunken visit turned into a pattern of harassment. I connected her with financial counselors from the shelter, who specialized in helping women disentangle their finances from abusive partners. There were difficult days when Eric's parents called, threatening to sue for grandparental rights. Days when Harper discovered new debts hidden in her name. Days when the weight of starting over seemed too heavy to bear. But there were good days too. Emma's first laugh, which brought Harper to tears. The afternoon Harper received a job offer from her former employer, who had kept her position open all these years. The evening she cooked dinner for us, Robert's favorite lasagna recipe, and we sat talking long after Emma had fallen asleep, rebuilding the bridge between us one shared memory at a time. 3 months after Harper and Emma arrived, I came home from the shelter to find her sitting on the porch swing, a familiar envelope in her hands. "I found this in your desk drawer," she said, holding up the envelope I'd brought to the baby shower. "You kept it all this time?" I sat beside her, the swing creaking gently beneath us. "I always hoped you'd want to read it someday." She opened it carefully, as if handling something precious. Inside was not only the letter I described but also a photograph, Robert holding newborn Harper, his face alight with joy and wonder. "I'd forgotten how much he loved me," Harper whispered, tracing her father's face with her fingertip. "He wanted to protect you from everything," I said. "So did I. Maybe that's why I came on too strong about Eric. I saw the danger signs, but I didn't know how to warn you without pushing you away." Harper leaned her head against my shoulder, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. "You tried your best." I wasn't ready to listen. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Emma slept peacefully in her bassinet beside us, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. "I've been thinking," Harper said finally, "about the house." My stomach tightened involuntarily. "What about it?" "You told me Dad wanted it to be my safety net. And it was. It saved us." She gestured toward Emma. "But I don't think he meant for me to stay here forever, dependent on you." "Harper," I began, afraid she was planning to leave. "Let me finish," she said gently. "I want to renovate the guest house at the back of the property. Make it a proper home for Emma and me. Close enough that we're still family, but separate enough that I can stand on my own." Relief flooded through me. "I think that's a wonderful idea." "Really?" Harper looked up surprised. "You're not worried about me encroaching on your space?" I laughed softly. After 3 years of silence, I'd welcome some encroachment. Harper smiled, but her expression quickly turned serious again. "There's something else. I want to volunteer at the shelter. Not right away, I need to get my own life in order first. But eventually, I want to help other women the way you helped me." Pride swelled in my chest. "They'd be lucky to have you." "I learned from the best," she said, squeezing my hand. As darkness fell, we carried Emma inside, moving through the house that had witnessed so much of our history. Joys and sorrows, arguments and reconciliations, departures, and now, finally, a return. That night, after Harper and Emma had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room, looking at old photographs. Robert smiling from our wedding day, Harper on her first bicycle, the 3 of us at the beach, sunburned and happy. I paused at a particular photo, Robert and me on the porch swing, the day we'd bought this house. "We did it," I whispered to his image. "We kept it safe for her, just like you wanted." 6 months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, we gathered in the newly renovated guest house for Emma's first birthday. The small cottage gleamed with fresh paint and new furnishings, most of which Harper had purchased herself from her now flourishing career. Eric was not present. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks earlier, after he'd finally admitted his gambling addiction and entered a treatment program. Harper had been generous in the settlement, refusing to punish him for his illness while still protecting herself and Emma from its consequences. As I watched my daughter move confidently through the room she designed herself, greeting friends and coworkers, I barely recognized the frightened woman who had fled to my doorstep with only a diaper bag and a broken heart. She was stronger now, more self-assured, her decisions no longer seeking approval but guided by her own inner compass. Emma toddled toward me, arms outstretched, babbling "Gamma" in her sweet voice. I scooped her up, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and birthday cake. "She adores you," Harper said, joining us. "Sometimes I think she's more yours than mine." "Nonsense," I replied. "She's all yours. But I'm grateful to be part of her life." Harper gestured toward the window, where the main house was visible through the trees. I never understood why Dad was so insistent about keeping the house, but now I do. It wasn't about the building. It was about maintaining a safe harbor, no matter what storms came. He was wiser than I gave him credit for sometimes, I admitted. Harper nodded, her gaze turning reflective. "Do you think he'd be proud of me? Even with all my mistakes?" "Oh, Harper," I said, shifting Emma to my hip so I could wrap an arm around my daughter. "He was always proud of you. And so am I. Not despite your struggles, but because of how you faced them. As guests mingled around us, celebrating not just Emma's first year but also the new life Harper had built from the ashes of the old, I felt a sense of completion I'd thought I might never experience again. The circle that had broken 3 years ago had reformed, different but whole. The envelope that had once held so much hope and heartbreak now sat framed on Harper's wall. The letter and photograph preserved as a reminder of where we'd been and how far we'd come. Beside it hung a new photograph. 3 generations of women on the porch swing, Emma between Harper and me, all of us laughing at something long forgotten. This house, this legacy that Robert had insisted we protect, had served its purpose. It had been there when Harper needed it most, offering not just shelter but a foundation from which to rebuild. And in saving her, it had saved me too, from isolation, from bitterness, from a life half lived in the shadow of estrangement. To new beginnings, Harper said that evening, raising her glass as the last guests departed. And to the love that got us here, I added, thinking of Robert, of Emma, of the unbreakable bond between mother and daughter that had bent but never truly broken. Outside, twilight settled over both houses, the old and the new, the past and the future, connecting them like a bridge across time.